Hello, everybody. I'm Connie Joe with Soul Navigation, and today we're going to look at markers in the chart that might indicate you're a player or a cheater or unfaithful. So, if you have one of these markers, or even if you have all of these markers, it doesn't make you a cheater or a player, but it does mean the capacity could be there to cheat or be a player. You have to look at the entire chart, take the entire chart into consideration to get the big picture. But take out your natal charts and definitely get the charts of your partner. And let's take a look at some of the markers in the natal chart that indicate playing, cheating, or unfaithfulness. So I want to start with the rising sign. So look at your rising sign. What sign is on your ascendant? That's the sign that starts your chart over here. And on this side is the descendant. It is the seventh house cusp. And that's really what we're going to look at a lot today, because the seventh house is the house of committed relationships. So look at your rising sign, and we're going to look to the opposite side for the descendant. The first marker in the natal chart that might indicate you're a player is a dual sign on the descendant. So if you have Gemini, Pisces, or Sagittarius on the descendant, on this side, the seventh house cusp, it may mean you're a player. And this is why. The dual signs, which is the two fish, Pisces, and that's Sagittarius, part man, part horse, and Gemini, the twins. Just think about the word. There's duality there. They are all mutable signs. So there's that capacity that they have for changing their mind easily, wanting this to grow more, Sagittarius. I'm going to kind of go through each one and explain a little bit further. If you have Gemini on as your rising sign, you do have a Sagittarius descendant. If you have Sagittarius as your rising sign, you do have a Gemini descendant. And if you have Virgo as your rising sign, you do have a Pisces descendant. So this is what we're looking at. So Pisces, the fish. So it's ruled by Neptune. Neptune is the planet of deception. It is the planet of confusion, delusion, and no boundaries. The fish are kind of hard to catch, and you might think you have one and it swims the other way. Pisces on the descendant is very loving, romantic beyond words. They truly see things through those rose-colored glasses. But you take the glasses off, or you think you have caught the fish, and all of a sudden they're swimming away from you. That is kind of how Pisces acts as the seventh house cusp. It doesn't mean they can't be faithful. It just means that they may have a skewed view on romance and what a committed relationship really, really looks like. They kind of get bored easily, or if they feel like they're not growing or it's not romantic enough, all of a sudden you see the fish swimming away, or in a lot of cases, they've just ghosted you. You never see them swimming away at all. So let's take Sagittarius. It's ruled by Jupiter. And this goes if you have, I'm going to go back to Pisces for a minute. If you have Neptune in your seventh house, it's kind of the same premise. You really see relationships in a very romanticized way. And it also has the savior complex a little bit, where you think you can save that person, or if they're addicted or they have any kind of real life issues, a Pisces on the descendant thinks they can save them. I mean, it's really kind of beautiful, but at the same time, when the rose-colored glasses come off and they see that it's not as romantic as they think, or they really can't save this person, then sometimes it can just go, and there may be cheating or playing involved. So again, back to Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. This goes if you have Jupiter in your seventh house as well. What happens is Sagittarius is the planet of growth. It's the planet of expansion, higher learning, philosophy. So if you have Sagittarius on your descendant, really one of your goals in life is to grow through your partner, to grow through that committed relationship. And if or when the growth stops, so does the Sagittarius. Also, if you have Jupiter on that descendant, they want to continue to grow. And when they feel like they're not going to learn anything else from the person they're in a relationship with, they will move on. Um, and sometimes that involves cheating, and sometimes maybe a little bit of playing, but they want to continue to grow. And if the growth stops, so does Sagittarius on the descendant. Okay, and our last one is Gemini. And I want to say this also goes if you have your Venus in Gemini, and somewhat even if you have your moon in Gemini. So Gemini on the descendant is very social. It wants to get to know every single thing it can know about the other person because it's ruled by Mercury. So they want to gather all this information and gather facts. But Gemini is ruled by the twins. And if they can kind of turn a little bit on a dime when it's on that descendant axis. So what happens is Gemini gets bored easy. This is nothing against Gemini. I mean, I have Gemini on my descendant. I admit it. And but they can get bored easily. So they move on to the next person. They move on to the next thing. So just be careful not to bore a Gemini on the descendant. But really what they want is they want knowledge. They want to really get to know you. Maybe not in a deep way like Scorpio, but they want the facts. They want to socialize. And that is why the three dual signs could mean you have the capacity to cheat, be unfaithful, or just be a player. So my next marker for cheating or playing is Venus conjunct Mars or Venus opposing or square Mars. So if your Venus makes a hard aspect to Mars, these can be difficult aspects. The conjunction, not as much because they're sitting right there together and the energies blend. But Venus is the planet of beauty and love. Venus is also the planet of our values and self-esteem. Mars, the planet of action and sex. They can react together. Venus brings the players to the party. Mars keeps them there. So you have the love and you have the sex combined. So in the conjunction, this really just makes very sexual people. I mean, all of these aspects, if you have the square or opposition as well, you're probably a very sexual person. That is probably a very important part of your life, that romance and that sex. But when you have the square or the opposition, it's like the two energies go against each other. And you can become impatient, Mars, impatient about love, Mars with Venus. There is this real desire to have something special with Mars and Venus together in any of those capacities. But when it doesn't happen the way you want it to, or it doesn't happen fast enough, you may move on. And there's a lot of flirting with this aspect. I mean, you put Venus and Mars together and it can get a little bit flirtatious, especially if you might have Mercury involved in there somewhere. So when you get the opposition, you've got Mars, the sexual action part of it, and Venus, the beauty, love part of it on opposite sides. And it kind of can go back and forth. But again, there's an impatience there that can happen if things aren't moving fast enough for you, or the romance isn't really there, or it's just all sex, as in the opposition. It can work like that. And some of these people move on really quickly. They like the party when it's getting started, but they don't stay to the end of the party. And that is why if you have Venus and Mars in a conjunction, square, or opposition, you could be a player or a cheater. So just give that one some thought. Like I said, these people are very sexual people. It's a very real desire in their life. But when you have the energies opposing each other or going like this and that square coming against each other, there can be real impatience and sometimes a lack of self-esteem. And when you have a lack of self-esteem and security in yourself, sometimes you go to multiple people to find what you need to look for in yourself. Just give that one some thought. Okay, so my next marker is Venus in the 12th house. So think about this. Venus in the 12th house is actually the Pisces house, or it's the house that's ruled by Neptune on the zodiac wheel. So in ancient astrology, the 12th house was the house of our own undoing, where it's like the eighth house is the secrets we know. We may not share them, but we know deep inside. The 12th house is kind of like secrets we keep from ourselves because the ascendant looks forward. I mean, that's the start. That's our physical body. And we're looking toward the second house, third house. The 12th house is behind us. So a lot of times we don't really feel and recognize the energy that's in our 12th house. So this is the house of hidden things, hidden secrets. Therefore, it's very easy if you have Venus in the 12th house for there to be secrets or affairs or things you don't want anyone else to know. I don't know if it necessarily makes you a player, but on the other hand, you hide things from people. It's ruled by Neptune. There's no boundaries. So let's say you fall in love. Well, this person is going to be your everything for real. But at the same time, it's that Neptune love where there's no boundaries to it. It's going to last forever. It's romantic. But then it's also the house of things that are hidden. So it's easy with that position to keep things hidden from yourself, from a partner, from someone else. It's not always easy to have Venus in the 12th house. I mean, it is the house of the collective. A lot of people that are famous have their Venus in the 12th house. But kind of give that some thought as well. How many people that are famous do we know that cheat, have affairs, that they're players? It's a tricky one because it's not like you set out when you have Venus in the 12th to have an affair or keep something hidden. It just kind of happens. And sometimes it happens a lot. So keep that one in consideration. Venus in the 12th house. And just remember, it doesn't mean you're a cheater. It doesn't mean that you're a player, but it means the capacity to cheat could be there. Okay, so my next indicator of playing in the natal chart, or the marker that I want to talk about next, is Uranus in the 7th house. Okay, so it doesn't always mean that you're a cheater or that you're a player. I mean, it could mean that you marry an astrologer because Uranus rules astrology, right? But Uranus in the 7th house wants freedom. Uranus is the planet of rebellion. It is the planet of freedom. It wants wide open spaces. It wants room to change in an instant because things with Uranus can happen suddenly. So this person might suddenly meet someone else or suddenly fall in love, or they may not have enough freedom in the relationship that they're in. And I think that when you have transits that set off this Uranus in the 7th house, like let's say you have a Mars transit or you have the Uranus square to your natal Uranus. I mean, this could actually set off a chain of events where there might be playing or cheating. And I don't think it's that these people do this on purpose, but there's a lot of nervous energy that comes with having Uranus in the 7th house. Anywhere you have Uranus, there can be a lot of nervous energy there. But in the 7th, that energy revolves around your committed relationship. So this is why you might need freedom all of a sudden, or you might just feel rebellious, like you don't want to be in a relationship anymore. And also that when you have Uranus there, you may want a very unusual relationship. I mean, this could be a placement where you want an open relationship or you want to play different kind of games with your partner. I'll let you just use your imagination. It doesn't always mean that you're a cheater. It doesn't always mean you're a player. It just truly means the capacity is there. That rebellion and freedom might want to break free at any moment. They are also very innovative. And they may choose a partner that's very innovative, that's very smart, that thinks outside the box because they get bored easily. Your partner may get bored easily. I mean, this may be a case where it's your partner that is a little rebellious or wants a little too much freedom. So if you have Uranus in the seventh house, you might be a player. And something I'd like to add to that, if you have your Venus or your Mars in a conjunction, which means they're right next to each other in the natal chart with Uranus, it could be the same concept where you need that freedom and love with Venus, where you need sexual freedom with Mars. It's kind of a very sexy thing when you have Uranus with Venus or Mars because people kind of can't figure you out. It's interesting to have those aspects, but at the same time, that need for freedom, that need to sometimes rebel, the need to be different is there with those aspects as well. So we can add to our list Uranus in the seventh or Uranus in conjunction with Mars or Venus. Okay, my next indicator in the natal chart that you could be a player is if you have Mars in Sagittarius or you have Mars in Aquarius. Now, don't get mad at me, Mars and Sag and Aqua placements, because these people are very flirtatious. And it's not that they're always a player, but with Sagittarius Mars, they want to learn more about you. They want that higher learning. They also want that freedom and expansion that Jupiter brings because Sag is ruled by Jupiter. So having your Mars there, they take action in their sexual prowess in a very expansive way. And it's hard to get these people to settle down sometimes. They prefer that freedom. Jupiter doesn't give the freedom or it doesn't yearn for the freedom that Uranus does, but it wants to expand. It wants to grow. Again, they may get bored easily. So this is Sagittarius Mars. If you have Mars in Sagittarius, you might be a player. That I do love the energy though, because they're very flirtatious. They're fun to be around. These are people that are a lot of fun to be around, but they may not take their romantic interest so seriously. Okay, Aquarius, Mars, not so different, but a little bit. Sagittarius and Aquarius are the most freedom-loving signs. I do want to say this about Aquarius, though. If you can nail one of them down, if you can catch an Aquarius, any sign or any planet in Aquarius, and they do settle down, it's a fixed sign. And most of the time, they are faithful. But with Mars in Aquarius, it's hard to get them to settle down. They want that freedom. It's ruled by Uranus. They are rebellious. They're some of the friendliest people that you'd ever want to meet. They have innovative, fun conversations. We are talking about Mars here, so I'm going to get to the sexual part. And they might like their sexual dinner a little bit different. They might want to eat their Chinese food off of their partner rather than the plate. That's up to them. Aquarius, Mars can get bored easy. They want to change things up and they want that freedom. So getting a Mars and Aquarius to commit to begin with can be a bit tricky. Just remember, once you get the Mars Sagittarius or the Mars Aquarius to commit, most of the time they're faithful. But it's getting them to that place, getting them out of that playing mode where they'd rather flirt and maybe have their cake and eat it too. All right, let's move on. This last marker that I want to tell you about, it involves Neptune. I just want to explain. Neptune is the planet of confusion, delusion, rose-colored glasses, no boundaries. It's like the sirens call on the rocks. Their song is so pretty. I don't remember the whole myth. And they lure the sailors up on the rocks and then they die. It's like there's this illusion there. Neptune is romantic. It's that beautiful, romantic, beautiful song that you hear. It's that feeling you get of just romantic love altogether, where it's almost like a fantasy. It's that fantasy kind of, maybe not delusional, but sometimes land of no boundaries. That is what Neptune is about. It's also the higher octave of Venus, which makes Neptune the planet of unconditional love. With all of this confusion, delusion, cheating kind of thing going on, Neptune is usually the culprit, whether in the natal chart or whether you have a Neptune transit or in progressions, something in your progressions is aspecting your progressed Neptune. All of these things are usually the culprits in cheating and unfaithfulness in relationships. So let's break it down a little bit. So if you have Neptune in hard aspect to Venus, Mars, or even to some degree the moon, you may be a player, a cheater, or unfaithful. And this is why. By hard aspect, I mean the square or the opposition, even to some degree the conjunction. Remember, the conjunction is where the two planets sit together. I know all you soul navigation watchers
already know a lot about the aspects, but if you're new to the channel, I just wanted to give a little bit further explanation of that. And by the way, I'm Connie Joe, and if you'd like to book a reading with me and have me look at your natal chart a little bit closer, you can find a way to book in the notes below or go to soulnavigation.com, readers, and Connie Joe. All right, back to Neptune. So if Neptune is in a square opposition with Venus, Mars, and somewhat even the moon, because the moon is that visceral instinct, it is our emotions, and you get Neptune involved, and then that can lead to down the road to those emotions of love, coming in, that romance. But in hard aspect with Venus, let's take Venus first. It can cause your self-esteem to be a little low. You have all of these expectations of romance and love, your Neptune, and then Venus coming in, and you think, maybe I need to be more beautiful. Maybe this person will love me more than that person did. But the energies block each other. So it's hard to make those energies blend together. And what happens is the Venus Neptune square person or opposition person, they kind of go from person to person with those rose-colored glasses on, looking for that fantasy, looking for that.
unconditional love that really only we can get from ourselves.
They go from person to person, the rose-colored glasses come off, and they realize this is not what I was looking for. This does not fulfill me. This does not fulfill that soul need. I mean, Neptune goes deep. It feels like it's in your very soul. So when you have that square and you're looking for something so viciously and hard, and you want that romance so bad, you may get with people or be with people that aren't good for you or maybe abusive. You realize you haven't set any boundaries. There's no boundaries. And you're in a relationship that is not working for you. So the rose-colored glasses again come off and you move on to someone else. Now, sometimes this happens before a relationship ends, a little bit of cheating there, and sometimes this is the person that might just go from one person to another, looking and searching for that love that they're having a hard time finding within themselves. Because the illusion is that they're not good enough or that they're not pretty enough, the Venus part of it. And so they will continue to look for something that doesn't exist except within themselves. Now, this doesn't mean if you have Venus in square or opposition to Neptune that you can't find love. Absolutely not. But it might mean that you have to go around that block a couple of times before you find love. And I want to add that with Venus Neptune aspects and also Mars Neptune aspects, these people are usually very beautiful, even though they may not realize it.
Mars Neptune is very, very sexy, romantic sexy, and they may not realize it because when it's Mars and Neptune, you have your sexual prowess and your actions making again a roadblock with Neptune, that planet where you want that fantasy, where you want the unconditional love.
I mean, Mars rules our sex and our actions. Neptune rules confusion and delusion and deception. Neptune is the father of deception. When you put the two together and they're not in harmony, this is when you can be a bit of a cheater or a player because you really want everything to work out. I mean, in your mind, where you're being a little bit deceived by Neptune, your Mars is like, oh, this is the best sex I've ever had, or this is my person for life. And then
It settles in that Neptune is a delusion sometimes, that sometimes it's very elusive and nebulous and not true at all. And you move on to the next person because that person did not fulfill that need inside of you. So when you have Neptune with Mars, Venus, or the moon, you just have to be really careful that you don't get carried away by the fantasy, by the romance, by the deception. This is why Neptune with Mars, Venus, or the moon is my last marker for cheating or being a player in the natal chart. Okay, so let's go back through quickly. So we have Uranus in the seventh house. We have dual signs on the descendant, which is Sagittarius, Gemini, and Pisces. We have Mars in hard aspect, conjunction, square, or opposition with Venus. What else do we have? Venus in the 12th house. And then we had Mars in Sagittarius or Aquarius. And lastly, we have Venus, Mars, or the moon in hard aspect or an aspect that's difficult to Neptune. Even if you have every single one of these markers, it doesn't necessarily make you a cheater or a player or even unfaithful. You have to look at the whole chart. If you'd like for me to look at your chart or do your compatibility with your partner, that's my favorite thing to do. Like I said, you can find in the notes below a link to get a reading with me.
so be sure to come back because I think next I want to do markers in the chart that mean you're probably faithful. Fidelity markers in the chart. See you next time. Bye from Florida.